The royal palace of Zalara Prime shimmered under the twin suns, its golden towers rising high above the clouds. Inside the grand hall, hundreds of alien nobles gathered, their jeweled eyes fixed on the same impossible sight, their queen, Zalara, standing beside a human man. The whispers echoed like soft thunder through the hall. A human? She married a human. The disbelief was so thick it could almost be felt. Queen Zalara stood tall, her silver crown gleaming as she looked out at her people. She was calm on the outside, but her heart raced inside her chest. She knew her decision had shaken the galaxy. No alien ruler had ever chosen a human as a life partner. Humans were seen as weak, primitive, and short-lived. But Zalara had seen something no one else could, a quiet strength behind Ethan's gentle smile. Ethan, the human who had won the queen's heart, stood beside her in simple dark clothes. He didn't wear royal robes or armor. He didn't bow or boast. His calm eyes watched the crowd with an unreadable expression. Some of the alien generals sneered at him. Others looked at him with curiosity, as if trying to understand what made this fragile creature so special. Later that night, after the ceremony, Zalara and Ethan stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights below. Thousands of ships floated like stars in the sky, celebrating their union. "They hate me for choosing you," Zalara whispered. "They think I've made a mistake." Ethan turned to her, his face calm. "Let them think what they want," he said softly. "Sometimes, strength hides where no one expects it." There was something about the way he said it, not angry, not proud, but certain, that made her uneasy. She had ruled empires and crushed rebellions, yet this one man's calm confidence made her feel both safe and curious. What was he hiding behind that steady voice and kind eyes? Over the next few weeks, strange things began to happen. Reports came from distant colonies, unknown ships vanishing near the borders, energy readings rising in empty space, and communication satellites going dark. Zalara's council grew nervous. "It's the humans," one of them said. "Your husband has brought danger to our world." Zalara refused to believe it. Ethan spent most of his time in the palace gardens or in his private study, reading old Earth books and building strange devices. He said they were harmless projects, just science experiments. But when she tried to ask what they were for, he would smile and change the subject. One night, she couldn't sleep. The air outside was still, and the sky glowed faintly with the twin moons. She walked quietly through the palace halls, following a faint hum, a sound like a heartbeat hidden deep beneath the walls. The sound grew stronger near the lower chambers, where few dared to go. As she stepped inside, she saw Ethan standing before a massive metal door. Blue light pulsed from the cracks around it. He didn't notice her at first. His hands moved over a control panel with swift, practiced precision. "Access code confirmed," a voice said from the machine. "Human signature verified." "Ethan," Zalara said sharply. He froze. Slowly, he turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "What is this place?" she demanded. "What are you doing down here?" He sighed and touched the door. It slid open with a low hiss, revealing a hidden chamber filled with advanced human technology, machines unlike anything she had ever seen. Floating screens showed maps of galaxies, coded messages, and glowing symbols marked Sentinel Protocol. Zalara stayed in shock. This is human tech, ancient tech. These designs were banned after the war. Ethan stepped closer, his tone calm but firm. "I didn't come here to harm anyone, Zalara. But there are things in this galaxy even your people don't understand. Earth may have fallen, but we left something behind, something powerful." Her heart pounded. "What do you mean, left behind?" He looked into her eyes. "You'll know soon, but you need to trust me." For the first time in her reign, Zalara felt unsure. She had faced armies, assassins, and cosmic storms, but this quiet human standing in front of forbidden technology made her feel truly afraid. The next morning, she told no one about what she saw. The council would panic. The military would demand Ethan's arrest. She couldn't risk it. But deep inside, doubt began to grow. Who was this man she had married? Was he truly the kind and gentle human she had fallen for, or something else entirely? That night, she stood by the window, watching Ethan walk alone across the garden. His shadow stretched across the marble path. The The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a faint metallic hum. In the distance, a star flickered, once, twice, and then vanished. Zalara's hand tightened on the railing. The galaxy was changing, and somehow she knew her husband was at the center of it. The palace was silent after the light faded. Smoke curled through the corridors, and the air smelled faintly of burned metal. Queen Zalara stood beside Ethan, her heart pounding as she looked at the now-dark machines around them. The glowing lines that had once filled the chamber were gone, leaving only silence. "What did you do, Ethan?" she asked again, her voice trembling. Ethan stood still for a long moment before answering. "I used the old human failsafe. It's a dimensional pulse. It doesn't kill, it moves things. I sent those creatures away before they could reach your cities." "Sent them where?" Zalara pressed. He looked up slowly. "I don't know. The system was damaged when Earth fell. It doesn't show where they go anymore." Her eyes narrowed. "So you could have sent them anywhere? Even into another civilization's territory?" He nodded, guilt flickering across his face. "Maybe, but it was the only way to save your people." The Queen turned away, pacing slowly. Part of her wanted to thank him. Another part wanted to demand answers, who he really was, and why he had this kind of power hidden in her world. Before she could speak, the palace communicator lit up. General Karatha's voice came through, rough with static. "Your Majesty, the enemy ships are gone, but so are our outer satellites. It's like a wave of energy erased them too." "Understood," she said calmly, forcing control back into her voice. "Hold position. I'll address the people soon." She turned back to Ethan. "You will stay here. No more secrets. No more surprises." Ethan didn't argue. He only nodded quietly and watched her leave. That night, Zalara stood alone on her balcony. The twin moons hung over the dark sky, reflecting off the metal spires of a city. Everything looked peaceful again, but she knew it was only for now. The alien ships hadn't been destroyed. They had simply vanished, and she didn't trust that kind of peace. Her mind replayed his words. "It's a dimensional pulse." That kind of technology had been banned across the galaxy thousands of years ago. Only the ancient human empire had been reckless enough to build such weapons. She realized then that Ethan wasn't just a human scientist. He was something more, maybe a soldier, or worse, a keeper of secrets from a dead world. Meanwhile, deep below the palace, Ethan sat alone in the dark chamber. The machines hummed softly around him as if whispering in an old-forgotten language. He placed his hand on one of the consoles, and faint light appeared again. "System status," he whispered. A cold mechanical voice replied. "Sentinel coactive. Unknown signal detected. Source, deep space. Origin, Earth." Ethan's heart stopped for a second. "That's not possible," he muttered. "Earth was destroyed." The machine responded. Signal confirmed. Active human transmission detected. He stared at the glowing screen in disbelief. If this was true, then somewhere, somehow, Earth still existed, or someone from Earth had survived and was sending a message across galaxies. The next morning, Queen Zalara called a private meeting with her most trusted advisor, Lady Ceres. The tall alien woman bowed deeply before speaking. "Your Majesty, the Council is demanding to know what caused last night's event. They fear the human may be responsible." Zalara sighed. "He saved us. Without him, those creatures would have destroyed the capital." "But he also brought this danger here," Ceres said softly. "If the people learn about this human weapon, there will be panic." The Queen knew she was right. The people had never trusted humans. They remembered the wars, the destruction, the arrogance of old Earth's armies. To them, a human with such power was more dangerous than any alien invader. That night, she went to Ethan again. He was already waiting in the garden, as if he knew she'd come. "You lied to me," she said quietly. He looked at her with tired eyes. "About what?" "You told me Earth was gone, but your machine said there's still a signal coming from there." He didn't deny it. "I didn't want to tell you until I was sure. But yes, the signal is real, and it's growing stronger." Zalara felt a chill. "What if it's a trap?" "It might be," Ethan said. "But if it's not, then it means humanity is alive, or something from Earth has survived. and it's calling to me." He looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen before, fear mixed with hope. "Ethan," she whispered, "you need to understand something. If my council learns that you're communicating with a human source, they will see it as a threat. They might try to remove you." He smiled faintly. "They can try." That small smile scared her more than any weapon. There was power behind it, quiet, patient, dangerous power. Suddenly, a deep vibration shook the palace. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Lights across the sky began to flicker. A strained blue spiral appeared in orbit, turning slowly like a storm. Zalara grabbed his arm. "What is that?" Ethan looked up at the spiral, his face pale. "That's the signal. It's here." She stared at him in disbelief. "Here?" "In our system." He nodded. They followed the signal source. Whatever is coming, it's not just another fleet. A loud alarm rang through the city as ships began to move into defensive formation. The Queen's general shouted orders. Across the sky, flashes of light marked the arrival of something huge, far larger than any fleet she had ever seen. Ethan watched quietly. "It's not them," he whispered. "It's us." Zalara turned to him sharply. "What do you mean?" He looked at her, his voice low and calm. "That's a human warship. From Earth." Her heart froze. "But you said Earth was gone." He nodded slowly. "I was wrong." Outside, the blue spiral split open, revealing a massive vessel shaped like a blade of light, ancient and powerful. Symbols from Earth's old military glowed faintly on its hull. The Queen and her people stayed in silence. The humans had returned, and this time, the galaxy would never be the same again. The palace was silent after the light faded. Smoke curled through the corridors, and the air smelled faintly of burned metal. Queen Zalara stood beside Ethan, her heart pounding as she looked at the now-dark machines around them. The glowing lines that had once filled the chamber were gone, leaving only silence. "What did you do, Ethan?" she asked again, her voice trembling. Ethan stood still for a long moment before answering. "I used the old human failsafe. It's a dimensional pulse. It doesn't kill, it moves things. I sent those creatures away before they could reach your cities." "Sent them where?" Zalara pressed. He looked up slowly. "I don't know. The system was damaged when Earth fell. It doesn't show where they go anymore." Her eyes narrowed. "So you could have sent them anywhere? Even into another civilization's territory?" He nodded, guilt flickering across his face. "Maybe, but it was the only way to save your people." The Queen turned away, pacing slowly. Part of her wanted to thank him. Another part wanted to demand answers, who he really was, and why he had this kind of power hidden in her world. Before she could speak, the palace communicator lit up. General Karatha's voice came through, rough with static. "Your Majesty, the enemy ships are gone, but so are our outer satellites. It's like a wave of energy erased them too." "Understood," she said calmly, forcing control back into her voice. "Hold position. I'll address the people soon." She turned back to Ethan. "You will stay here. No more secrets. No more surprises." Ethan didn't argue. He only nodded quietly and watched her leave. That night, Zalara stood alone on her balcony. The twin moons hung over the dark sky, reflecting off the metal spires of a city. Everything looked peaceful again, but she knew it was only for now. The alien ships hadn't been destroyed. They had simply vanished, and she didn't trust that kind of peace. Her mind replayed his words. "It's a dimensional pulse." That kind of technology had been banned across the galaxy thousands of years ago. Only the ancient human empire had been reckless enough to build such weapons. She realized then that Ethan wasn't just a human scientist. He was something more, maybe a soldier, or worse, a keeper of secrets from a dead world. Meanwhile, deep below the palace, Ethan sat alone in the dark chamber. The machines hummed softly around him as if whispering in an old forgotten language. He placed his hand on one of the consoles, and faint light appeared again. "System status," he whispered. A cold mechanical voice replied. "Sentinel core active. Unknown signal detected. Source, deep space. Origin, Earth." Ethan's heart stopped for a second. "That's not possible," he muttered. "Earth was destroyed." The machine responded. Signal confirmed. Active human transmission detected. He stared at the glowing screen in disbelief. If this was true, then somewhere, somehow, Earth still existed, or someone from Earth had survived and was sending a message across galaxies. The next morning, Queen Zalara called a private meeting with her most trusted advisor, Lady Ceres. The tall alien woman bowed deeply before speaking. Your Majesty, the Council is demanding to know what caused last night's event. They fear the human may be responsible. Zalara sighed. He saved us. Without him, those creatures would have destroyed the capital. But he also brought this danger here, Ceres said softly. If the people learn about this human weapon, there will be panic. The Queen knew she was right. The people had never trusted humans. They remembered the wars, the destruction, the arrogance of old Earth's armies. To them, a human with such power was more dangerous than any alien invader. That night, she went to Ethan again. He was already waiting in the garden, as if he knew she'd come. You lied to me, she said quietly. He looked at her with tired eyes. About what? You told me Earth was gone, but your machine said there's still a signal coming from there. He didn't deny it. I didn't want to tell you until I was sure. But yes, the signal is real, and it's growing stronger. Zalara felt a chill. What if it's a trap? It might be, Ethan said. But if it's not, then it means humanity is alive, or something from Earth has survived, and it's calling to me. He looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen before, fear mixed with hope. Ethan, she whispered, you need to understand something. If my council learns that you're communicating with a human source, they will see it as a threat. They might try to remove you. He smiled faintly. They can try. That small smile scared her more than any weapon. There was power behind it, quiet, patient, dangerous power. Suddenly, a deep vibration shook the palace. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Lights across the sky began to flicker. A strange blue spiral appeared in orbit, turning slowly like a storm. Zalara grabbed his arm. What is that? Ethan looked up at the spiral, his face pale. That's a signal. It's here. She stared at him in disbelief. Here? In our system. He nodded. They followed the signal source. Whatever is coming, it's not just another fleet. A loud alarm rang through the city as ships began to move into defensive formation. The Queen's general shouted orders. Across the sky, flashes of light marked the arrival of something huge, far larger than any fleet she had ever seen. Ethan watched quietly. It's not them, he whispered. It's us. Zalara turned to him sharply. What do you mean? He looked at her, his voice low and calm. That's a human warship. From Earth. Her heart froze. But you said Earth was gone. He nodded slowly. I was wrong. Outside, the blue spiral split open, revealing a massive vessel shaped like a blade of light, ancient and powerful. Symbols from Earth's old military glowed faintly on its hull. The Queen and her people stayed in silence. The humans had returned, and this time the galaxy would never be the same again. As dawn broke across the kingdom, Queen Alara stood on the battlements, the rising sun gleaming off her silver armor. The distant plains were quiet, but she knew that silence never lasted long before a storm. The Dark King's forces were gathering again, stronger, angrier, and driven by vengeance after their last defeat. Yet, Alara felt no fear. Her heart had turned into steel long ago. Behind her, the fortress hummed with energy. Blacksmiths hammered out weapons, soldiers prepared their armor, and the air was thick with the scent of metal and fire. Every man and woman in that castle looked to Alara as their last hope. But as she gazed at the horizon, she couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was missing. Late that morning, as Alara entered the war council, the generals bowed. Maps stretched across the table, marked with red lines showing enemy movements. They've broken through the eastern ridge. One commander said grimly, if we don't reinforce it, they'll reach the river by nightfall. Alara studied the map, her eyes sharp and calm. Then we will not wait for them to reach it, she said. We will meet them halfway. Her words brought silence, then murmurs of both fear and respect. She was outnumbered, yet her courage seemed unshakable. As the council dispersed, Sir Alden, her most loyal knight, lingered behind. "My queen," he said softly, "you fight like a god, but even gods need rest. You haven't slept in days." Ilara gave a faint smile. "If I sleep now, Alden, I'll see their faces again. The ones I couldn't save." He looked at her sadly, wanting to argue but knowing it would be useless. "Then promise me one thing," he said. "When the battle comes, don't leave from the front. You are too valuable to lose." Ilara placed a hand on his shoulder. "I cannot ask him to die for a queen who hides behind walls." Her voice was firm, unshaken. "If I fall, then let them remember why they fought." That evening, as she walked through the training grounds, she stopped to watch a young soldier trying to lift a heavy sword. The boy stumbled, nearly dropping it. "Too heavy for you?" Ilara asked gently. The soldier blushed, realizing who stood before him. "My queen, I'm sorry, I—" "Never apologize for weakness," she interrupted softly. "Only for giving up." She lifted the sword easily and handed it back to him. "Courage isn't born in strength. It's born in pain." The boy nodded, his eyes shining with determination. Ilara moved on, her heart heavy but proud. She saw herself in those young faces, the same fear, the same hope. Night came, and with it, a strange stillness. The moon hung low over the fortress, silver light spilling across the stone courtyards. Ilara couldn't sleep, so she climbed the watchtower again. The wind whispered through her hair as she looked toward the dark horizon. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow shifting where no light should move. Her hand went to her sword. "Show yourself," she commanded. Out from the shadows stepped a hooded figure, his face half hidden. "Peace, my queen," he said quietly. "I bring word from the east." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "A messenger," he replied, "but not one of yours." Before she could react, he dropped to one knee, revealing a crest on his arm, the mark of the Dark King. Ilara's guards rushed forward, swords drawn, but she raised a hand to stop them. "Speak," she said coldly. The man's voice trembled. "The Dark King sends an offer. End this war. Surrender your throne, and he will spare your people." Ilara's expression did not change. "And if I refuse, then your kingdom will burn by dawn." A deadly silence filled the air. The wind howled through the tower, carrying the tension like a blade. Ilara took a slow step forward until she stood inches from him. "Tell your master this," she said in a voice colder than steel. "The Queen of Athera does not kneel." The messenger's eyes widened, but before he could speak again, her guard seized him. "Lock him in the dungeon," she ordered. "At dawn, he will see what it means to threaten my people." As they dragged the man away, Ilara looked once more toward the dark horizon. The storm was closer now. She could feel it in her bones. But she also felt something else, a strange, stirring light within her. It was not just anger. It was destiny. She turned to Alden, who had appeared quietly beside her. "At dawn," she said, "we ride to the eastern ridge." Alden's eyes widened. "You mean to attack first?" Ilara's lips curved into a small, fierce smile. "Yes. Let the Dark King know that the Queen of Light does not wait for darkness to strike." And as the moonlight gleamed off her crown, the soldiers below began to gather, whispering her name, Ilara, the Unbroken. The morning air was sharp and cold as Queen Ilara rode to the front lines. Mist clung to the valley, wrapping the world in a gray shroud. The distant hills looked calm, but she knew death waited beyond them. Her army marched behind her, a sea of steel and banners, thousands strong. The sound of boots and hooves echoed through the land like thunder. Sir Alden rode beside her, his face hard with worry. "The eastern ridge is a death trap," he said. "If they've set an ambush—" Ilara cut him off softly. "Then we will break it. The Dark King believes we are afraid to fight in his shadow. He is wrong." As they reached the ridge, the mist began to thin. The sun struggled to rise behind clouds, throwing pale light over the battlefield. Scouts rushed ahead and signaled back. The enemy was near. Ilara dismounted, her boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. She walked forward alone, her cloak billowing behind her, and looked down the slope. There they were, Thousands of dark-armored soldiers, their banners black as night, moving like a tide of death. At their center, a monstrous figure rode a war beast, the Dark King himself. His armor gleamed like obsidian, and his eyes glowed faintly red even from this distance. For a moment, silence hung between the two armies, a heavy, suffocating stillness. Then, with a single sound, a horned cry, the world erupted into chaos. Arrows darkened the sky. Steel clashed. The ground shook beneath the weight of charging soldiers. Ilara drew her sword, its blade shining with a golden light, and led her knight straight into the storm. "For Aethra!" she cried, her voice rising above the roar. Her troops followed, screaming her name as they crashed into the enemy line. The first wave hit hard. Men fell, shields splintered, and the smell of iron filled the air. Ilara fought like a spirit of vengeance, her movement swift and precise. Every strike was fire, every motion, fury. Alden stayed close, his blade cutting down any who dared come near her. "They are trying to surround us," he shouted. "Then we cut through them," Ilara replied, driving her sword through a dark soldier's chest. Blood sprayed across the ground. "We make them fear us." Hours passed like minutes. The battle raged on, and though her body ached, Ilara refused to slow. Around her, she could see her people holding strong. Even when they fell, others rose to take their place. Courage burned brighter than fear. Then a sudden sound split the air, a deep, resonant boom. From the enemy lines, massive siege beasts emerged, creatures of stone and fire, their bodies covered in black armor. They roared, shaking the ground. Alden's eyes widened. "They brought war beasts. We can't hold the ridge." Ilara clenched her jaw. "We don't need to hold it. We'll break them before they reach it." She raised her sword high. "Archers, aim for the eyes." Flaming arrows streaked through the sky, hitting their marks. One beast screamed, stumbling, but the others kept advancing. The ground burned where they stepped. Then, amidst the chaos, a chilling sound came. Laughter, deep, cruel laughter that rolled across the battlefield like thunder. Ilara turned and saw him, the Dark King, riding forward, his dark blade pulsing with power. His voice carried across the valley. "You should have stayed in your castle, little queen." Ilara's grip tightened. "And let you burn my world? Never." They met in the center of the battlefield, where fire and ash rained down. Their swords clashed, and a burst of light exploded around them. Gold against black, light against shadow. The force threw soldiers from both sides to the ground. "You cannot win," the Dark King hissed. "You fight with hope, I fight with eternity." Ilara gritted her teeth and pushed back with all her strength. "Then eternity will learn what hope feels like when it strikes back." Their blades met again, sparks flying. Each hit echoed like thunder. The ground trembled beneath them. Around them, soldiers stopped fighting, watching the two titans clash. But even as she fought, Ilara could feel her strength fading. The Dark King was powerful, too powerful. He swung his sword down, and she barely blocked in time, the force sending her to one knee. Her vision blurred for a moment, and pain shot through her arm. "Bow to me," he said coldly, "and I might let your people live." Ilara looked up, blood dripping from her lip. "I would rather die standing than live kneeling." Summoning the last of her strength, she drove her sword upward. Light exploded from the blade, pure, blinding, golden light that tore through the darkness. The Dark King staggered back, roaring in fury as a light burned across his armor. But before she could finish the strike, he vanished into the mist, his laughter fading into the distance. Ilara stood in the smoking ruins of the battlefield, chest heaving, her soldiers staring in stunned silence. The Dark King had retreated. For now, Alden rushed to her side. "My queen, are you hurt?" She shook her head slowly, though exhaustion weighed on her. "No, but this is not over. He will return, stronger." Alden looked at her, confused. "Then what do we do?" Ilara gazed toward the horizon, where the first rays of dawn broke through the dark clouds. "We prepare," she said softly, "because next time I won't just fight him. I will end him." And as the light spread across the battlefield, her soldiers began to cheer, tired, blooded, but victorious. For the first time, they had seen that even darkness could bleed. That night, the camp was quiet. Fires burned low, flickering against the tired faces of soldiers who had survived the impossible. The air smelled of smoke and steel, and though the war drums had stopped, the silence felt heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Queen Alara sat outside her tent, wrapped in a cloak, staring at the stars. The battle replayed in her mind again and again. The clash, the screams, the blinding light, and the Dark King's mocking laughter as he vanished. She had wounded him, but he had escaped, and that meant he would come back. So Alden approached quietly, a cup of hot broth in his hands. "You should rest, my queen," he said softly. "You've been awake since the battle ended." Alara took the cup but didn't drink. "I can't rest while it's still out there. He's planning his next move. I can feel it." Alden hesitated, then sat beside her. "You hurt him today. You made him retreat. The men are calling it a miracle." Alara gave a faint smile. It wasn't a miracle. It was desperation. She looked toward the dark horizon. "He's not done. The darkness he commands. It felt alive, Alden, like something ancient and hungry. I've seen power before, but not like that." Alden frowned. "Then we need more than courage. We need answers. You spoke once of old legends, the guardians of the first flame. You think they are real?" Alara nodded slowly. "I used to think they were only stories told to give us hope. But the light that came from my sword, I didn't summon it. It answered me. Someone, or something, wanted to help." Alden leaned closer. "Then maybe it's time we find them." Before she could answer, the ground trembled faintly. The fires flickered. In the distance, a deep, hollow rumble echoed, like thunder, but darker. Soldiers rose to their feet, grabbing their weapons. A scout rushed toward them, pale and shaking. "My queen," he gasped. "The western watchtower. It's gone." Alara stood immediately. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" The scout swallowed hard. "It didn't burn. It just vanished, swallowed by the dark. There's nothing left but dust." A chill swept through the camp. The soldiers murmured in fear, eyes darting to the night sky. Alara felt her pulse quicken. She knew what this meant. The Dark King was moving again, faster than she expected. "Sound the alarm," she ordered sharply. "Double the guards. No one leaves the perimeter." As Alden rushed to obey, Alara entered her tent. She unrolled a map across the table. The western edge of the kingdom was marked with red ink, villages, towers, and forts. All that land was now in danger. Her fingers trembled slightly as she touched the spot where the tower once stood. "He's testing us," she whispered to herself. "He wants to see how long it takes before we break." Suddenly, the flame in her lantern flickered violently, then went out. Darkness filled the tent. Alara froze. She could feel something, a presence, like a cold whisper brushing against her thoughts. Then she heard it, a voice, deep, hollow, familiar. "You cannot stop what's already begun, little queen." Her breath caught. "Show yourself," she demanded. But there was no body, only a swirl of black mist forming in front of her. The shape twisted until it became a faint outline of the Dark King's face. His crimson eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "Did you think one battle would change your fate?" the voice hissed. "You carry the light, yes, but the light burns those who hold it too long." Alara gritted her teeth. "You failed to destroy me once. You won't get another chance." The mist seemed to smirk. "Oh, Alara, I don't need to destroy you. I only need to make you doubt yourself. The rest will follow." Before she could reply, the mist vanished, leaving only silence and a faint trace of cold in the air. Moments later, Alden burst in, sword drawn. "Are you all right?" Alara nodded, her hand still trembling slightly. He was here, not in body, but in spirit. Alden looked around, tense. "He's trying to frighten you." "He doesn't need to," Alara whispered. "He's already frightening the world." She turned back to the map and took a deep breath. "We can't wait for him to strike again. We'll move at dawn. The western lands need protection. If he's using the darkness to consume them, then we'll bring light." Alden nodded. "Where will we go first?" "To the ruins of Calethorn," she said firmly. "The place where the first flame was born. If the legends are true, that's where we'll find our strength." Outside, the wind began to howl, carrying the faint sound of distant screams from the west. The darkness was spreading, fast. Ilara stayed into the shadows beyond the tent flap. "He wants to play with fear," she whispered. "But fear only makes a fire burn brighter." And as the night deepened, the Queen of Athra began her next move, not as a ruler seeking victory, but as a woman ready to face a nightmare that refused to die. The journey to Calethorn was long and perilous. For days, Queen Ilara and her army rode through broken lands, villages turned to ash, forests stripped of color, rivers running black with corruption. The once-living world now looked like the shadow of itself. The soldiers spoke little. Even the horses seemed uneasy, their eyes rolling at the faint whispers that followed them through the dark woods. A cold mist clung to the air, thick enough to hide shapes that didn't belong. Sometimes, Ilara thought she saw faces in the fog, faint, hollow eyes watching her pass. She didn't tell the others. She couldn't afford panic. Alden rode close beside her, scanning the trees. "My queen, we've lost 2 scouts already. They just vanished, no struggle, no sound." Ilara's jaw tightened. "Keep everyone close. No one rides alone." As the column pushed forward, the ground began to change. Blackened stone gave way to glowing embers beneath the surface. The sky above was a dull crimson, as if stained by endless fire. Finally, after what felt like eternity, the ruins of Calethorn appeared on the horizon, tall, broken spires of ancient stone rising from the burning earth. Even in ruin, the place felt powerful. The air buzzed faintly with magic, and the stones pulsed with faint golden light. When they reached the center of the ruins, they found a vast circular platform. Strange symbols were carved into the ground, words of an ancient language long forgotten by time. In the middle stood a single pedestal made of crystal, cracked but still glowing faintly. Alden dismounted and touched the ground cautiously. "Is this it? The birthplace of the first flame?" Ilara nodded. "So the stories say." She stepped onto the platform, her boots echoing softly. "This is where the first light rose against the darkness. And this is where I'll learn how to make it burn again." The soldiers formed a circle around the ruins as Ilara knelt beside the pedestal. Her hand hovered over the crystal, uncertain. "If you can hear me," she whispered, "I need your strength. My people need your light." At first, nothing happened. The air was still. Then the symbols around her began to glow, one by one. The light spread slowly, like veins of fire running through the stone. A soft hum filled the air, growing louder until it became a song, deep, ancient, and beautiful. The crystal pedestal cracked open, revealing a small orb of golden light. It floated upward, pulsing gently, as if it were alive. Ilara reached out, and the moment her fingers touched it, a shock of warmth surged through her body. Images flashed in her mind, visions of the past. She saw the first guardians of light standing where she knelt now, wielding fire against endless night. She saw the Dark King before he became what he was, once human, once noble, before the darkness consumed him. And she saw something else, a choice that would come soon, one that would decide the fate of all. The vision faded, and the orb sank into her chest, merging with her. Her sword began to glow again, brighter than before. Ilara gasped, feeling the power flow through her veins. It was overwhelming, like holding the heart of a star. Alden rushed forward. "Ilara, are you all right?" She stood slowly, her eyes now shimmering with faint gold light. "I am," she said softly. "But the flame is not just power. It's alive. It's watching me." Before Alden could respond, the ground trembled violently. Cracks split the stone, and a deep, guttural roar echoed through the ruins. The soldiers drew their weapons as a black mist began to pour from the cracks, forming massive shadow creatures, twisted shapes with glowing red eyes. "They found us!" a soldier shouted. Ilara raised her sword, its golden light slicing through the gloom. "Hold the line," she commanded. "Do not let the darkness cross this ground." The creatures attacked, screeching, their claws cutting through armor and stone. But Ilara moved like lightning. Each swing of a blade unleashed waves of golden fire, burning the shadows to ash. The soldiers rallied behind her, their courage reignited by her strength. Still, there were too many. For every creature that fell, 2 more took its place. The air filled with the smell of burning shadow. Then, through the chaos, a cold wind swept across the battlefield, and the mist parted. The Dark King appeared. He walked through the ruins as if the fire feared him. His armor shimmered with black light, and his sword bled shadows into the ground. "I told you, little queen," he said, his voice echoing like thunder. "The light you hold will consume you." Ilara's eyes blazed. Better to burn in light than rot in darkness. With a cry, she charged. The 2 forces collided, and the world around them exploded in gold and black. Their swords met, and every strike sent shockwaves through the ruins. The soldiers fell back, shielding their eye from the blinding flashes of power. "You can't win," he shouted, pressing her down. "You think that flame will save you? It feeds on your life. Every time you use it, you burn a little more." Ilara gritted her teeth, forcing herself to stand. "Then I'll burn until there's nothing left, as long as you fall with me." She summoned everything within her. The golden light erupted, engulfing the battlefield. The shadows screamed as they turned to ash. The Dark King stumbled, shielding his face, but he didn't fall. When the light faded, Ilara stood trembling, her strength nearly gone. The ruins were silent. The Dark King looked at her with something strange in his eyes, almost respect. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "The flame you hold, it once belonged to me." And with that, he vanished once more into the mist, leaving behind silence and fear. Ilara fell to one knee, breathing hard. Alden rushed to her side, his voice full of worry. He escaped again. What did he mean? The flame belonged to him. Ilara stared into the dying glow of her sword. "It means," she whispered, "that to destroy him, I'll have to destroy what's inside me too." The soldiers watched as their queen rose again, her golden light flickering weakly in the growing dark. The final battle was coming, and both light and darkness knew it. Dawn broke cold and red over the battlefield. The ruins of Calethorn still smoked, the air thick with the stench of ash and blood. The army of Athera moved slowly, tending to the wounded, burying the fallen. But Queen Ilara stood apart from them, staring into the horizon where the Dark King had vanished. She could still feel his power lingering in the air, ancient, heavy, alive. Alden approached quietly, his armor scorched and dented from the fight. "The men are shaken," he said softly. "They saw you shine like a star, and they saw him disappear. They don't know if we won or lost." Ilara didn't look at him. "Neither do I," she whispered. "The battle ended, but the war hasn't. The flame burns inside me stronger now, but so does the shadow he left behind." Alden frowned. "You think he was telling the truth? That the flame once belonged to him?" Ilara turned her gaze to the rising sun. "I saw it in the vision. He was once a guardian. Like me, he touched the flame before time forgot his name. But he couldn't control it. It consumed him, twisted him. That's why he became the Dark King." Silence hung between them for a moment. The realization was heavy, terrifying. Alden finally spoke, voice low. "Then if you use that power again?" Ilara nodded slowly. "Yes, I risk becoming what he is." The words hung in the air like a curse. The sound of the soldiers moving faded into the background. The wind carried the faint cries of crows circling above the ruins. But then Ilara straightened, her eyes burning with quiet fire. "Fear won't stop me. He's out there spreading his darkness across my land, across my people. If I fall to the flame, I'll fall fighting for them, not running from what I've become." Alden looked at her with both admiration and fear. "Then what's the plan?" She turned back to the broken city behind them. "We rebuild. We gather what strength we have left, and we prepare for the final battle. He will come to me again. He always does. But next time, I'll be ready." That night, the army camped among the ruins. Fires burned bright, though they dared not burn too high. Ilara walked alone through the shattered halls of Calethorn. The golden markings that had once glowed on the stone were now dim, almost gone. But she could still feel the hum of the flame deep within her chest, quiet, patient, waiting. Then, faintly, a voice echoed in her mind. It was not the Dark King's voice this time. It was softer, ancient, kind. Light and dark are not enemies. They are the two halves of the same soul. To end the darkness, you must face the shadow within your light. Ilara stopped, closing her eyes. Then that's what I'll do, she whispered, even if it kills me. The next morning, they marched. Word spread across the kingdom. The Queen of Athra was alive, and she carried the flame of the first light. Villages that had fallen into despair lit torches again in her honor. Farmers, smiths, and hunters joined her cause. Her army grew, not out of fear, but hope. And far beyond the mountains, in the black citadel of the Dark King, the shadows stirred. He sat upon his throne of obsidian, his armor cracked where her light had burned through it. His red eyes flickered faintly, not with rage, but curiosity. "She is stronger than I thought," he murmured to the darkness. "She carries my fire, and yet it obeys her." A whisper answered him, ancient and cruel. "Then take it back. She cannot fight you and herself forever." The Dark King rose, his shadow spreading across the walls like a living thing. "Oh, I will," he said softly. "The next time we meet, I will not fight her with blades. I will fight her with truth." Back in the Queen's camp, Ilara stood upon a high cliff overlooking the valley. The sun broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks, bathing the land in golden light. Soldiers cheered below, their voices echoing through the hills. But Ilara did not smile. Her heart felt heavy, her hands still trembling with a power she barely understood. She could sense him, far away but closer than ever. The flame inside her pulsed, as if it too could feel the coming storm. Alden came to stand beside her. "The men believe you can save us," he said. "They'd follow you to the edge of the world." Ilara looked down at her glowing hand, and then at the horizon. "Then to the edge of the world we'll go," she said softly, "because that's where this ends." The wind howled across the plains, carrying the smell of ashen dawn. Light and darkness were gathering for one final reckoning. And as the Queen's army marched toward destiny, her flame burned brighter than ever, beautiful, deadly, and unstoppable. The story of Queen Ilara and the Dark King had not ended. It had only just begun.